Welcome to Back Yourself, BackChat's new podcast where we speak to business leaders and decision makers. This week on the show, Ben Trinh, former owner of LifeReady Physio. Ben built this from the first clinic up to a national network of physio clinics, scaling all the way through to a sale. Ben has now sold out of the business. He tells us how he did it. It's an incredible story that starts from small beginnings, goes through some adversity, and in the end, everything turns out all right. Hope you enjoy. Okay, welcome to Back Yourself by BackChat, our new business podcast. This week I'm joined by Ben Trinh. You just heard a little bit of an intro about him, but Ben, welcome.
Hey, mate. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, mate, it's great to have you on that side of the chair. You've been helping us out as a business pretty much since we started, and we'll probably get into that a little bit later on in our chat, but we're talking off air about you jumping on as a podcast. You're giving us the business advice. Now you're getting interviewed as a podcast. Are you feeling all right? You feel nervous?
A little bit nervous. I'm definitely not an expert in this domain, so no, appreciate you having me and appreciate seeing you do what you do.
Good. Well, the big reason I wanted to have you on, because I know a little bit about your story and I think it's worth sharing with other people. And I'll take you back to the start, really. I want to know life growing up for Ben Trinh. I know sort of where you are now, and we'll get to that. But I don't know, what's life like growing up for Ben?
Growing up, it's weird chatting with you because obviously we've been mates for a bit of time, and so obviously you know bits and of my story. But and I'm normally quite a private person, so it's quite it's a bit daunting just chatting about it.
You go in depth as much as you want, mate. Yeah. But
I'm willing. Yeah, no, I appreciate the question and appreciate you having me. Grew up in Perth. I now live in Melbourne. Child of Vietnamese immigrants post-war. Our family escaped. That whole crazy fall of Saigon. My grandma was 60, and sort of overnight, for those who don't know Vietnamese war history, it was sort of like the US pulled out, the war ended. We were on the American side of the war, and my grandma talked about lining up all the kids, we had a fair bit of wealth, generational wealth in Vietnam, and getting them to pour kerosene on all the money we had and just burn it down, burn the house, quite literally the burn the boats thing, and just eat. Our family was in diamonds. They all my mum would describe grabbing a handful of diamonds and just hoeing down as much as she possibly could. And grandma had prepaid 12 bars of gold per family member. We had 10 kids, so it's a crap load of money. So that they could secure a spot on an illegal pirate boat, And I think, I only looked it up recently, but it was like 1.2 million people tried to escape illegally at that time. And I think it was 2/3 died, through the jungles or through the boats. Our family, everyone survived. It was an absolute miracle. They ended up in a Malaysian refugee camp where they would stay for a while. They ended up choosing Perth. And I always remember asking my grandma, why Perth? She's like, I just chose a place where is the furthest place from absolutely anywhere where there definitely will never be a war? And she's like, that place, where to get there, you've got to go through a whole ocean or invade an entire country just to get to that place. And she just wanted a peaceful life. And so we ended up in Perth. First few years, I was born here though. Parents did what every Vietnamese immigrant did at the time, just rebuilt new lives. Most of them went into business in textiles, fruit and veg shops or delis or restaurants, and my parents chose fruit and veg shop. Turns out, though, they weren't particularly skilled in business, and they had a lot of challenges, headwinds come against them. They had a little shop in Dianella, they had a little shop in Dianella. Galleria opened up. They just didn't know what to do, didn't pivot. And my memory, my earliest childhood memory was 0 to 7 was amazing. Went to private school, lived a great life, good community, and probably experienced a bit of a turning point when I was 7. I still, you go through, when you go through in life, you have like those memories that stick with you. My earliest one being 7 was playing after school at John Septimus Row in Mirrabooka, the private school I was part of. Mum would let me play for hours after. That day she just grabbed me and was like, we're heading home. And I remember sitting in the car and just whinging about having to be sent home and looking over, this is the memory, like looking over, seeing her holding the steering wheel with both hands. And I was just yelling at her, as 7-year-olds do. And I remember just stopping because it was just the weight of the moment. And she just started crying. And my grandpa had just passed away. And within a few weeks, it feels like in the same time, we were bankrupt as a family, like lost everything. And literally moving house, moving school. I remember moving between different rentals. We ended up in Balga, and then we lived in Wanneroo, and then just swapping schools. And so life from 7 till, I want to say 10, 11 was pretty much just moving between schools, parents trying to rebuild themselves. My mum was super close to my grandpa, so that all happening in that year was a lot. And so, yeah, life was that. My dad it switched to private school, pretty stable, to parents working 3 jobs, me never seeing them, being an only child. And after school, my dad would pick me up. I'd go to Greenwood shops, which is still there. We'd clean the floors from like 4 till 6, get home, sleep, walk myself to school in the morning. They would do this. My dad would work, go to fruit and veg at 3 a.m. And, that was life pretty much from the ages of 8 to 12. And then at 12 went to... got into a school that was willing to be flexible on fees based on how much your parents earned, a private school in Kingsway. And that's how I met, and I stayed there from the ages of 12 till finishing high school. So, yeah.
So, I mean, that's obviously a story in brief, right? Like your whole childhood, but like, again, knowing you're in business now, entrepreneur, startup, CEO, all those things, like how much do you think that period, your childhood, like influenced it? Like, not nature and nurture, but I know some of that stuff is like really influenced how you've gone in business. Like, how much do you think that is?
Yeah, I think, there's definitely a nature and nurture, I'd say, component. The nature component, I'd say I've always been goal-driven, competitive, and, really had a rich appreciation for what my grandma had sacrificed and family had sacrificed for us to be here. And so there's partly I always wanted to do well at things. I think the nurture component, there's something about I have amazing parents. Their biggest strength is unlike a lot of my mates, they love me unconditionally, my biggest fans, to this day, and they're amazing, wonderful human beings. They're just, if you grow up wealthy, it's hard for them to learn about cash flow management and business and, when they were trying to do it themselves. But when you see them struggle and lose everything and you're just forced to be independent at such a young age, because I was an only child, walking yourself to school, I think there's a big part of, and making your own lunch after school, learning to be okay with being alone. I think there's a big part of learning how to, I think it gave me a bigger imagination because I was just alone all the time with my thoughts. And I think it gave me a big confidence that I could be safe when I was by myself. So I think so much of starting a business is backing yourself, being comfortable with being adaptable, being comfortable with your own thoughts and imagination, of coming up with new ideas. And then also like that aspect of, if I'm scared and I'm alone, I can work my way through it. Because there are so many times walking home from school when I was 8 or 9, you hear a noise, a rustle in the bushes. I have kids now that are that age, so it's like they would piss themselves. But I think I remember being scared, but looking for the old safety house sign, working out different things that I would do. I'd carry a hammer in my bag, if I was really scared, you just come up with strategies and ideas. What do you do at night? Leave the lights on at the front, if people knock on the door and you're home alone. It's like all these things you realize, you have to work it out. You're trying to cook yourself. I remember once cooking myself fried chicken because I really felt like it. Ended up burning, I didn't understand that adding a frozen piece of chicken that had ice all over it into a boiling hot oil pan, you get a huge fire, but then working it out, kind of like, how do I put that out? Tried to put water on it, made it blow. The wall was black, but the house didn't burn down. I worked my way through it. Gives you that confidence.
Did you get the colour off before Mum and Dad got home?
We actually had to change the entire backsplash of the kitchen, and the range hood still was black till the day of me leaving home. The day from the fire. It was wild.
Who was angry at Mum or Dad?
I don't actually remember them being super angry. I think they're like that. I think there's a bit of, they just felt guilty that I was home alone and had to cook myself fried chicken, but they were just very like supportive. I never felt threatened. It was never a fear-based environment at our house.
But you're talking about, effectively like problem solving strategies just in everyday life.
Yeah.
Through your childhood.
Yeah.
As well as the influences of your upbringing and, your environment. Go to school, go through uni. Like, what did you want to do? What did you do? Like, what did you want to do? What did you want to become? What were your dreams, aspirations as sort of a young adult? Like, what did you want to become?
Well, at school, I was able to find a very stable group of mates, and going into uni, I don't think I knew what I wanted to become. I just knew that I didn't want to put in the work to become like a lawyer. Just wasn't willing to study that hard. I was busy surfing, having fun with mates, but I also wanted to work with people. And I knew I wanted to have a bit of agency over what I could earn. Like I wanted to have a job with a higher earning potential. And so I ended up choosing physio because I just thought at the time, okay, you can work as hard as you work, you get paid a commission. As you want to work less, you get paid less, but there's a bit of freedom in the job and you get to work with people and help them when they're injured get better. It felt like a very, very good job choice. I didn't get in because I don't know, I was foolish during, year 12. I didn't even show up for my last TE exam because I couldn't be bothered because it was a week after because you only had to you got your score based on your top four, subjects.
And then you got like percentages of the others.
Yeah, and I just backed myself on the first four. Literally did not show up to my chemistry one because it was 2 weeks after as well on the last day of TE fortnight. I just wanted to go away with my mates who were in Margs and I skipped it. It's probably a stupid decision. Ended up with an inter score of like 90 but I think the physio, I'm not going to, don't quote me on it exactly, but I think I got 90 and then physio was like 92 or something like that and 91 and I didn't get in, was gutted, but then got second round offers. So it was weird. And then what they did at Curtin that year, I don't know if they do it every year, but everyone who got a second round offer was in the same class. So it was this real funny, we realized that after chatting with everyone, people would kind of lie, but then we worked out everyone here is a second round offer, like physio. Oh. And it was like this class with everyone with a bit of a chip on their shoulder. But I just remember being grateful that I got in because I really probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And uni was, mate, I didn't even think about life beyond uni. And I remember during uni just having fun, making friends, physio's really an extension of high school because you're studying together, you're in the same classes. It's not like other uni courses where you're switching around a lot. And then toward the end of uni, I remember one of my closest mates, Matt, who ended up working with me later, we were just chatting with each other. Like we used to drive together because he lived north of the river with me. And he'd be like, we just looked at each other like, how the fuck are we going to get a job? Like we've done nothing. I was working in sales at City Beach and working at Subway. I had not done anything for my CV. And, all our other friends were doing like sports taping, doing like stuff for sports clubs. I'm like, mate, I have no idea. So I honestly finished not knowing. But I did have one of our last lectures. We had a guy who was kind of running Life Care at the time, which were the biggest kind of physio group. And he did a big talk. I think it was meant to be a bit of a rev up, a bit of a recruitment drive, but he was like, this is how physio works. You've got to work 2 years as a grad and earn unders and learn. Then years 2 to 5, you back yourself, you'll learn more. And after 5 years, you can maybe own a bit of a practice. That's just the way it is. And maybe a bit of the contrarian in me, I was just, when people say stuff like that, that's very dogmatic. I sort of just want to why is that the way it is?
Why?
That makes no sense. That actually doesn't make sense because what if you just learn faster than another person? And I remember chatting to another mate after, Jared, who ended up working with us as well, just having a beer, and we're like, I just stopped buying into that. I mean, but I still was like, I want to work there. But I was like, I just don't know if I want to accept that. So, mate, I think that was the little nibblings of what we would do after. But yeah, that was my kind of uni time.
Yeah, so if that's the thread, I guess, that's sort of pulled a little bit for LifeReady Physio or what it becomes, let's call it that. But can you, I guess, tell us a little bit about the start of I'll call it your physio journey, although I want to spew up saying that
Yeah,
sentence. But like, didn't you come out? You're a physio.
Yeah.
You're not a physio now.
No.
I've never known you as a physio.
No.
And you've run a huge, I guess, physio business, but you were a physio.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you tell that part of the story where I guess you came out and you're physio and you're good to go and you're going to do your 2 years and then you're going to,
Yeah, I mean, it was a weird time. I remember applying for a ton of jobs and not getting any. Like, I didn't get in at Life Care. I didn't get in at, and I was getting a bit like shaken up, like sort of going, man, like what's wrong with me? All this stuff, and I just remember going, like I can't remember where I got this thought, and I'm sure I read it somewhere at the time, but it was sort of like life can happen to you. You can wait for life to happen to you, or you can make something happen. And I just thought, screw it. I'll just go set up a company. So I set it up. It was like Trinh Co. Propriety Limited, which still exists, I'm pretty sure. And I was like, I'm just gonna. I can't get one job, but maybe I can get lots of jobs, and actually maybe there's good in that. There's flexibility. And actually, I actually worked out another part of my personality is I love things to be hyper efficient. Like, I don't like wasted time or wasted, not just about money, but just life.
You already knew that though, because that's why you did the 4 subjects in year 12. That's why you didn't do the 5th, because you're like, well, why would I?
Yeah, exactly. It's inefficient, but also stupid at the time. So I wouldn't advocate for that. But I remember going, okay, well, the busiest time in physio in private practice is like from 3 p.m. till 7 or 8, because everyone's after work, and from like 7 in the morning till like 10, because like, and then you got the void in the middle of the day. And most practices struggle you're kind of sitting around all day because you got to do 8-hour shifts. And I thought I don't want to do that. Like, and so I actually worked out I could get multiple jobs. So I ended up working 3 jobs for about 6 months. So I worked in one in a gym in Inaloo, one in Balladura private practice, which was great. And then one in the mornings, it was like I worked at different practices in the mornings. Someone was in North Perth and whatever. But it actually, looking back, gave me a really cool, diverse experience where I was exposed to sort of a traditional, really, private practice in a medical center in Balladura. And then I was working in this gym thing that was a collaboration with chiropractors, which was totally random because physios back then didn't work with chiropractors. And then I was working in Kalamunda as well, like at a traditional private practice in a house that was well run, and then working for Dance Medicine Australia at the time a little bit, just doing coverage. So I got like a real diverse experience. And ended up earning really good money doing that. And so it was actually great. I enjoyed that flexibility. But, toward the end, I mean, not toward the end, that was only 6 to 12 months. I remember just catch up with my mates who got jobs, and we would all keep in touch every week. We'd grab Friday night drinks or whatever. And everyone would just complain about the same thing. It's just like, this is it. Like, this is life. Like, there's no career pathway. There's no sort of nothing beyond just treating patients every day in the grind. And I'm looking back, I think I have a real drive to keep relationships together, because being an only child, being isolated for so long, I really value friendships. And I was almost thinking like, how can I keep the band together? Because naturally I could see it coming that you'll just drift apart. And I was like, the great thing about my job was the autonomy and agency, but the bad part about it is you're pretty lonely because you're not really in any team. Yeah. So I guess, again, that was laid the seed for what the concept of LifeReady.
So, excuse me. So from there then, don't you go out and start your first physio business? Is that the story? I mean, you tell it, but
yeah.
But as far as I understood, you'd seen the issues not only your friends were having, but also people you were working with.
Yeah. Well, everyone as grads was just like, we studied 4 years, this is it, sort of thing. And at the time, the industry was pretty fragmented. There weren't many big players, so you were either going to work at a hospital or in a private practice. These days, it's a lot more diverse. I proposed to my mates one night, like, hey, if I got a practice, would you guys come work, even part-time? We could keep working together. That's the dream. And everyone was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be good. But you do it and maybe we'll think about it. We were all 22 at the time, so we were still young. So I just made it my mission to find a business to buy or to start. Or so I was looking at leases, looking at things. I had no money. I think I had $5,000 saved because I only worked for like, well, it's partially poor saving habits, but also
I was going to say, yeah, you were earning money as a physio, but
I was also
right?
22 or whatever.
Yeah.
So having fun, traveling, all that jazz. And I remember coming across a practice in Yokine that was on the market, and the Physio Association used to have this listing market, which no longer exists, but people just post practices for sale or rooms for lease. And it was on the market for like 60 grand, and I just didn't have 60 grand. I remember catching up with the owner and just going, look, I don't have 60 grand, and I'm not lowballing you. I'm just really poor, but I can give you 10 grand. That's it.
Sorry, I'm not trying to laugh at you.
No, I was 22. I had no idea what I was doing. And she was amazing. She was like, oh, done deal. I mean, she did sign me up to a 10-year lease with a personal guarantee, but when you're poor, that's the benefit. I'm like, guarantee away. I own a car. I own nothing. Like, take it. Yeah, if I can trade a 10-year lease for a car, hold an Astra, like a second old Astra, fantastic.
You want my old Astra too?
Yeah, take the car. So, I mean, look, in hindsight, probably stupid, but actually, I viewed it as a huge opportunity. And I had 5, and I just backed that I'd be able to. I felt like lowballing 60 to 5 was almost insulting. 60 to 10 felt, for some reason, less insulting. But literally, I remember sitting in my car after she said yes. And she was amazing. She did all the contract stuff to help me out. Like, I just had no idea what I was doing. She could have definitely taken advantage, but she didn't. And I remember sitting in my car going, did I just buy a business? What the heck? What did I just do? Like, and I remember going home and going, okay, I've got to talk to my folks. And maybe I can get like some money off them. And ended up sitting down with my mum and literally another one of those memory burn moments, and chatting with her and going, and my dad over at dinner, waited till he was home from work, and she said, look, I've just bought a business. I've got 5 grand. I need 10. Can you loan me 5 grand? And turned out I didn't know their situation at the time, but all they had was 5 grand as well. And my mum was like, is this what you feel like you're meant to do? Like, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you're 22. I was so selfish and dumb. Like, I look back, I'm like, how could I even ask my parents to do that? They just literally crawled out of bankruptcy for the last, 10 years and through a small business. And now their son wants to start a small business. Like, I would have just told my son to get lost. Like, what are you talking about? But my mum looked at me and just said, I remember teary eyes. She was just like, if you want to do this, we'll give it to you. Pay us back whenever, and if it doesn't work out, we'll still be together as a family, and you can live here as long as you want, whatever. So it was just amazing. In hindsight, I probably appreciate it more than I did at the time. At the time, I was just like, thanks, transfer the money, his BSBN account. Like, just now that I've got kids, I think that would probably be the same. But I obviously appreciate it now, knowing looking back what it meant for them. Yeah, and the sacrifice. So that was the start of it. My mates didn't keep their word and come work there because I couldn't guarantee them being paid. And fair enough, but they did come work part-time. Like, we still kept in touch. They, the business just flew. Like, I ended up keeping one job part-time while doing that just to make sure I could pay rent and payroll. And it was just total chaos, but amazing fun and learning. And mates would just sub in doing locums. I ended up asking clinics around the area. This is the great thing about the health community. Like, I said, well, at that business talk, he said, the reason you need 2 years is you need to learn and grow as well. So I was treating a lot of patients, but I was getting no mentorship. So I ended up paying another clinic with more senior physios to teach me. So I'd attend their learning events and get one of them to mentor me. And I just thought, I'll just pay them. And that's what they did. So that was this chaotic time. Yeah.
So you buy your first physio clinic for 10 grand, but it sounds like you're still a physio.
Yeah.
Now, you didn't build, and I won't call it an empire, you didn't build your business model around you being a physio. Like, you haven't been. So at what point did it switch from Ben the physio, all right, master with his hands? Were you a good physio, by the way?
I was good at No, I wasn't a good physio. My patients probably liked me. I think
relationships.
I cared a lot about people. It would take me longer to work out what was going on than most. I remember they had this thing called the physio pocketbook, which was our entire degree in a tiny book in my back pocket. I would always just pretend. You'd put them on the machine so you could get the book out because they're face down. You look, okay, what the hell is going on with this person? Like their back, their knee. You look, oh, okay, got it. Exactly what it is. It's probably divulging a few physio secrets there if you're lying on your stomach face down.
We'll just turn over.
Yeah. I'll put you on this, give you a heat pack, an differential, keep you warm. Give me 2 minutes.
So you can hear
I'll be back. I'm literally like, what is going on with this person? No.
So when does it flip from Ben the physio to Ben the business owner? I guess you own the business already, but I don't know. I'm prodding a bit with I
I get
model.
it. Yeah. No.
When does that happen? And
I
why
think
and how?
the spirit of our model, which was this idea that, I think the moment, it's a long change over time, but I think a milestone was the first practice was doing well. After about a year, my really good friend Jess came and joined the practice, and she left, a lot of opportunities to come work there and in good faith, and she became our head of operations later in the business. But there was this thing of, she's coming in. When she came in, I realized, there's just a lot of business stuff I needed to do. I was winding back. We opened a clinic in the city. My other friend joined there, and then we had a third practice was in Inglewood, Mount Lawley. And I think that moment, I really wanted one of my closest friends at uni was a guy named Matt. And I remember thinking, I really want Matt to come in, but we can't really afford him to come in and he's doing really well at his job. So the only way would be like a business partnership. And so I just thought, okay, well, what's the pitch? Well, the pitch is he doesn't know how to run a business at the time because he'd been working as a physio. And I knew heaps about business because I've been running one for 7 months or 8 months.
So did you have a handbook for that?
Yes. And yeah, I mean, geez. So, and I just asked him like, hey, we could just be business partners. Like I'll do the businessy stuff. You just handle leadership, taking care of the patients, and then we could work together. And that's your business. You take care of it. Like, cause he had I remember, and this is classic 22, 23-year-olds, but this is all in the first year, like and he was like, I've got this Europe trip, planned, 12 weeks, priorities, right? At 22. And I'm like, mate, go on the trip. It's fine. We'll work it out. But that's the starting 12 weeks. And we'll work it out. But it became this sort of, he did that, still did his trip. But I think that moment of me framing it probably wasn't as articulate as I just said it, but really delineating between, I would take care of the business stuff and he would take care of the local team and the patients, with kind of the inception of, I'm not just a physio. I've got this obligation to Matt, my really good mate, to be a good business partner, And I think that was the seedlings of, okay, maybe I'm efficiency. My time's better used. I could have a higher physio impact at scale if I do that for more mats. I guess that was sort of but at the time, to be honest, I didn't have that level of foresight. It was really just, I want to keep my friends together.
Yeah, which is cool. I love that about your story, especially because you've been able to bring, your mates with you as well. So look, we're not going to be able to go through every acquisition you've ever made in business, right? So I got to find a way to put a bow around it a bit. So if that's the first kind of thing, and then can we fast forward, and I want to then come back to some decisions you made and challenges you faced, but can we fast forward to what it ended up as?
Yeah, in the end, and most people don't know what LifeReady was, or they just knew it as clinics, or they knew it as whatever, and that was fine. My personality and one of my business principles is you should always operate under the radar. The limelight doesn't bring anything good, other than stroking your own ego. But I think, and it also allows you to operate with humility with your friend, because I had friends that were running those practices. I was really fulfilled by seeing those things work out, seeing me play a role in my mates doing well. But I remember bringing in investors, and they challenged me. I remember flying around the country trying to meet with these big, impressive people. No one would even meet me in WA at the time, because at the time there was only private equity funding was really and fun. There was no venture capital market, which is sort of that trendy stuff we hear about today. There was only private equity. And the concept of family offices, well, frankly, I didn't know about back then. And no one would even meet me in WA because he was really about mining. This is, whatever it was, 13, 14 years ago. So I remember flying to Sydney and Melbourne a lot, and a lawyer patient of mine opened up all these doors. I remember chatting with these families, and what was unique about my experience in Melbourne and Sydney, everyone would give me time. They'd all coach me and help me. I remember going to these fancy boardrooms and being so overwhelmed, but they would just sit down. Even they're like, well, business is a bit small, not really. The person we ended up going with challenged me. They said, I'll invest on 2 conditions. They said, one, at the time I was raising money to learn. I realized as the business grew, we opened, fast forward, we had 12 clinics or something like that. 8 to 12, I can't remember the precise number, but more than I could do. And I had they were all run by friends, like my closest mates. So I was really invested because I care about my mates. And I'm promising them I can do the business stuff. But really at that size, you're over 100 staff, or maybe I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I know slightly more than them because they're taking care of patients still and doing leadership stuff, but I'm no clue. And every week, me and Jess, who started taking on more of a support role on the corporate side or operations side, I wanted to call it corporate at the time, we're just we just need to find more and more help. And I tried it, realizing, I'm just out of my depth. So at that point, he challenged me to say, look, your imagination's too small. You just want to open more clinics. He's like, I'll invest if you increase your imagination. And obviously he knew how to wind me up because I was sort of like, what do you mean? My imagination is too small. He's like, you're just doing clinics, but you don't run clinics. You run healthcare businesses. And the problem you're solving, which is lots of little businesses need back-end help to grow and scale, that's true across the entirety of healthcare. And your vision's just too small. And I really lit me up because I'm like, no one's ever accused me of not having enough ambition. And I just said to him, all right, fine, but I will do that plan as long as every area we go into helps my mates in some way. Because I didn't want to be in a situation where I was doing some random thing over here, but at the breach of my social contract with my mates to take care of their business back end. And the second promise he said he wanted me to make was, I guess, so that first one, increase your ambition. And the second part was, I guess, to rethink my role, which is running that and not treating patients, because that will come at the expense of that. And so I stopped treating patients. So, which made sense because this whole thing is you're better utilized helping them do a great job treating patients. So the business became basically a back end, a corporate structure for healthcare businesses. The hypothesis being we would own or start healthcare verticals that would help each other. The technical term for that is revenue synergies. And we would also save people money on the back end by sharing a lot of the services at a shared corporate structure. So businesses in our conglomerate, for lack of a better word, would get lower costs and more revenue. That was the hypothesis. And so we had clinics. We had that under management, I guess, as more of my mates took on more responsibility and leadership. We did healthcare to the home before NDIS and all that with a mate of ours. And then we did hospital management, doing physio services at the hospital, doing it through corporate contracts. Then we bought, because we couldn't start, it was too hard, a friend, he's now a friend, but an OC Health business. And helped that grow, and he joined the company, which gave our clinics and our mates exposure to corporate contracts. So you just can't win if you're a little clinic. And then they also used that to launch a telehealth service. So we had lots of these divisions. So in the end, we then had one big company doing lots of different divisions and services that helped each other, and we sold that to HBF because they were getting into the game of running healthcare businesses, and I continued to oversee that for a period of time.
And how big did it get if it started at Ben running his North Perth clinic for $10,000 in a Holden Barina or whatever you were driving? How many clinics and staff? And because you were CEO when you
CEO exited. So I think at our peak, it's hard to measure because we obviously lost, which I won't go into the complexities, but in the HBF ecosystem, they ended up selling off some of our divisions. But if I count it for my tenure there and include the divisions, call it a year after we sold off, it would be about, 600 people, 600 people. Yeah. But I mean, I'm not going to I'm sure that my head of ops and HR will. There's not all FTEs and all that kind of stuff.
That's not the point. I'm not trying to make the point of how much yourself or any of that. More so, growth. Like you started with one staff member, which is you.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you were.
Yeah. Oh, and it was incredible. I would say, very fortunate. Like, and I think I will say at that time, after we count the pre-sale number as in, because HBF sold off, call it a third of the business. I'd say, a couple of hundred to be like, 400 at that time within that HBF. I don't know how big it is now. Obviously, I haven't been there for a while, but it was an amazing experience. And to see that it really felt like a movement, a community, across the country, obviously. And, it was a wonderful thing to be part of.
I'll get you into reflection a little bit later, but it was how long was that from was it 15 years or?
Yeah, 12 to 13 years, 12 years, 12, 13 years. Yeah.
Do you have moments in time that you sort of spoken about a couple of like turning points for you, but you have moments in time that were highly challenging? Like, was it ever on the brink of having to throw it all in or did you make some real blues that you still remember? Or are you more of they're just learning lessons? Like, obviously, people listening to this are probably in business or aspiring to be in business. So I think it's interesting hearing the success.
It's such a obviously that's
all pretty, right?
Yes, there's so much luck involved in it, which is, and I'd say luck is preparedness meets opportunity. So I think that speaks to the psychology that gets luck as well. So there's everyone gets opportunities, I think, but most people are not prepared to take those opportunities on and risk something for them. And then there's an element of judgment around that. So I'd say, yes, there were heaps of times my mates will remember, I think when we were 7 or 8 clinics, I remember having one of our early receptionists go away for a year and come back, Terry, and she said to me, the culture's weird. And I was like, oh, what's going on? Like, I was like, it's good to get her insights because she was part of it early days, left for a year holiday, came back. And it was because cash flow was tight. The company was growing broke. I had no idea what I was doing financially, and I almost felt isolated because I couldn't tell my mates. I felt almost ashamed because it's like they'd all quit their jobs to come work here. And I was stuffing up the back end. Like, we were doing all the stuff, but cash wasn't, we didn't understand cash flow. We didn't understand. And then because we grew so fast, suddenly the tax hits after 2 years. This was probably 2-3 years in. You get your BAS. You're moving to monthly BASs because we're quite big. You're starting to get all these taxes that you deferred from the first year, and bills are coming in. And I'm pretty sure we were trading insolvent, for a period of time. And I remember, which I don't think the team would know this, but I remember chatting to my wife. We'd just gotten married, had our first son. Yeah. And I remember saying to her, I was so cocky and arrogant. Like, we bought this house, and back then you could just get a loan because you were a health professional. Like, I think it was 98% like a loan, 2% deposit, something ridiculous. And I remember she'd quit her job to take care of our son, and she'd asked me in thorough detail a lot, like, "Are we okay financially?" Like, yeah, we're fine. Look, I'm winning at life. What are you talking about? Like, I drunk too much. My investor used to say I drunk too much of my own, eaten too much of my own bullshit. And I was just, and then I remember building a spreadsheet for the first time and facing the facts that we were actually insolvent. Like, cash was just coming in every day, but it was going out just as fast. We had no tax, no planning on how to set aside money for tax. Like, we just didn't know and by I say we, it's actually just me. I remember having to own up to my wife, and I remember her looking at me in the eye just going, I forgive you. If we lose the house, we'll have each other, but get on with helping save the company. And I remember saying to her, it was either fire some friends or not pay myself anything for an indefinite period of time. And we had like a little bit of savings, but not much. Like, the mortgage alone was going to kill that in a couple of months. And obviously I was never going to fire my mates. And so I just didn't pay myself. And I think it was at least 6 to 9 months. It felt like an eternity of me waking up at 5 a.m. to plan for the day. I remember the month after that, literally catching up with all my mates who had become partners and just confessing it to them, frankly, and apologizing and owning up. and promising to re-earn their trust and putting in a cash flow plan. I met with our accountant. We ended up moving supply. You know, it was all the crazy cash flow management stuff. And it was a wild time. But it was the most encouraging part of that time was, and I ended up I remember having like a day of 20 one-on-one meetings where I just almost told all my mates, anyone who was kind of a key person who'd left something, to come in and just tell them, you know, if you want to leave, leave. But I didn't tell them I wasn't paying myself. I just told them that the business was on edge. But, you know, we proceeded to turn it around, applied everything we did. I actually learned a ton about cash flow management. So it actually helped me a lot personally. One of our investors, because we had an investor, but we also had like some angel investors. I can't thank them enough. You know, they gave so much time to save the business and help us. But it was a wild time, you know, but none of the team quit. That's what blew me away. And I got all these encouraging emails back from staff just being like, thank you for being so vulnerable and owning up. Because I almost had to say the culture's been weird because we've had no money. And because I'm psychologically unwell from having no money. But having your team, who your mates just back you and stay in their jobs and get behind you was super encouraging. Mm-hmm. But it's a very difficult time. You know, it was anyone knows managing cash flow. If anyone's in that situation, it's a daily anxiety. You know, so no, it's very difficult.
So, I mean, that's, you know, not one lesson. I'm sure you learned a million lessons at the time about, you know, you've gone from small business, really. I mean, you're a small business owner. So if there's small business owners listening now, like, you've certainly helped us a lot with what we do at BackChat. And I see you doing that with other people. So it feels like the lesson maybe you learnt was around, you know, I don't know, maybe people need help and especially in small business, or they don't know, you don't know what you don't know, or what did you come out of all that thinking? Or
it actually not dissimilar to the lessons in my childhood, that the worst situation you can get through it with discipline. I think the biggest lesson was I realized you should be honest with your team. That was probably because your team know when you've got cash flow problems. That's what I realized. Like, they all knew something was up. If I wasn't upfront with them, I actually think there would have been this and because they were my mates, there would have been this awkward weight just on my shoulder that I was carrying, which was like this awkward void between, you know, dishonesty always creates that void. But being honest, them getting behind it and rallying with me actually did the opposite. It moved from a headwind to a tailwind. Like, we literally went from like this weight to actually just galvanizing us, and it was actually fantastic. So just being honest and open, whereas most founders in a cash flow position, you know, depending on their personality, will revert to shame and hiding it from their team, but your team will know. And if you just stay that way, they'll just leave, and then you lose people, and then you in the spiral where the cash flow keeps getting worse. And then probably just, you know, obviously realizing that in some way it's funny. It's if I'd done too much cash flow processing at the beginning, we wouldn't have grown as fast as we did. So in some sense, the answer is actually nuanced.
Was it a bit blind ignorance? No, as in like...
Well, I think what I've learned, now that we own a lot of different businesses, it's actually having... The ignorance gives you courage because you just, you know, stroke your ego with revenue as the thing. But there is a weird thing that comes with that, which is ambition and courage. So you want to take those opportunities, but then knowing when to switch into, okay, we've now gotten big or we're getting big, let's build processes earlier. You know, I'd say that's not dissimilar to, you know, a lot of like the BackChat story. All of our businesses, if you're too restraining at the beginning, you actually don't get the opportunity. But if if you don't switch from just being pie in the sky too soon, you actually kill the dream. So it's it's actually all about sequencing and less about dogmatism. So it's less about what to do exactly and more about doing the right thing at the right time. That was probably the big lesson I learned. Like, yeah,
that's good. Little switch to, I mean, you know, culture or like people gets mentioned a lot around business and just being around you. It feels like it was something that you focused on a lot or learnt to be good at or talk to me about, team culture or like how important.
Like I think
team is to business.
Well, what I've learned along the way now is that there are different types of founders, and knowing the type you are is important. But after I left LifeReady, I had a very difficult time, and I remember being in therapy, and my therapist helping me with. She's like, some founders start businesses because they can't handle, they're obsessed about a problem that needs solving. Some start it because they just want to win, improve, do deals. Although I like those things, but she's like, it's interesting and some just like the academic exercise, they want the challenge. For me, it was really about stuff to me only has meaning if I can put a face to it. And I think that's a big part of growing up alone as an only child. But I don't think I would have had no motivation to grow this business if it wasn't also meaningful to people I cared about. And by contrast, I realized if I don't care about a person, because since selling the business, we've done a lot of investing in other businesses. If I don't actually have a connection with the person, it's very hard for me to have empathy and then feel invested and actually feel that joy from it working out. But every business we own now is helping someone I've grown to care about. And so I think that the success has to be twofold. There's the commercial gain, but the depth of relationship you get with the people that go on that journey with you. There's something special about the lifelong bond that's built. And all of my early mates would say this, those early years of us suffering together has built probably a lifelong connection. It's not dissimilar to having kids with your wife. It's like a shared experience, but unique, because your other friends in business who aren't in business do not understand the stress. So I learned the team matters because it's an equal parts to the joy of the journey is who you're doing it with, not just the destination you reach.
What about leadership? So I look at people I've been around. My background, sport is leadership in sport is like in a few different ways. Like I've seen action-based leaders as players. I've seen verbal and a bit of tell-based leaders. Like what sort of leader are you? Do you? I'm assuming you look at yourself as a leader. Like what's your leadership style, and has it changed over time?
Yeah, no, the style has changed, but I don't think the core drive. My style, what I really enjoy is efficiency, which I've always talked about. But what that looks like with people is seeing their potential, and I really like being a part of bridging the gap between where they are and where they want to be, or where they could be. But potential is not just potential is a bit fluffy, but it's the synthesis between potential, desire, and capability. So I'm really good at, I think, making a quick, now these days, because I've seen it more and more, I'm better now than I used to be, making a judgment on someone's potential, what their actual capability is, and do they actually want it? Because at the end of the day, if you don't have all three of those things, you're just not going to get there, and then it affects the relationship because you get frustrated. And so I'm really good at identifying that, and I'm also really good at empathizing with where they are on the journey, and I'm really good at teaching and helping them get to where that is because I've gone through that personally, and I happen to enjoy that whole formation process. So,
which is important.
So I like, and in health, actually, I think in healthcare as a sector, most people are like that because that's what it is when a sick person or an injured person comes to see you. You're taking them from here back to their potential, and so I think there's a disproportionate number of leaders with that style in healthcare. Which is why I love the sector. But that's my style, and then doing that on scale is the challenge.
If that's a challenge, but what are some tough, any moments stand out to you as a leader that were extremely tough for you personally? Either
sure.
from the start or towards the end, or
I realized.
I
think earlier on, I made my judgments just on potential and chemistry. So I assumed if someone had potential that I saw and I liked them, that I backed myself to be their savior and I could get them to that potential. But if they actually don't want it, you can't form desire into someone else. They either want it or they don't. And so a lot of my pain earlier on was me thinking of myself too highly, I could take you there and almost be your functional savior. And with mates, putting my expectations on mates who didn't want that. They not taking the time to listen to what they actually wanted. And the shift, so many, when it's your mates, the highs are really high, but the lows are also really low. and I don't want to use potential is the wrong word. I think all of my mates, I view them as high potential, but sometimes your job as a leader is not to always take people to their potential. It's actually just to serve them and make sure that they're getting what they want out of their work. And over time, it started shifting for me. If some people want to become leaders and take on more responsibility, then my job is to make sure they have that. If some people want to do less and they've got other things going on outside of their job, well, then I have to create an environment that they can do those other things, because this is just a job and that's totally fine. So I think my style changed over time. But to your point, a lot of your question was like hard. The hardest part was earlier on, where I kind of expected everyone to meet and fit in that one box. And I won't go through specifics because they're people I still know, but managing your friends is always challenging, or even having hard conversations with your closest mates.
A couple last ones to finish off, mate. So we're sort of gone through your journey a little bit with LifeReady and where that got to. Where do you find yourself at now? And you sort of touched on it briefly, but I know you found it challenging sort of going through that big, almost every day in it, and then you're out of it. How have you been with that side of it? And like, I don't know, what do you see yourself? What are you doing? What's the future?
After leaving, I found it surprisingly challenging. You get a ton of money and you think that's the end of your issues, when really you're just the same person, and the money just is more like a light that shines on your issues, because now you've got nowhere to hide. Like suddenly you could previously blame all your issues on cash flow or being busy in the business, but when you're just by yourself again, it was almost like this teleport from me when I was like 9 alone to me being older and alone, and realizing I'm still the same broken kid because I just buried it under work for the last 20 years, or 30 years or whatever the gap is. But so there was a process there of going through that personally, and then a process now, which was, okay, well, what did I love about my work? Which is I loved getting alongside entrepreneurs, specifically, people who want to be entrepreneurs and who have the desire, the capability and the potential, and helping them get there. I wasn't allowed to do it in health because I was still after I sold the business, there's still a restraint. So it forced me to kind of challenge myself intellectually of what of those skills were transferable into other sectors. And so we started a family office, which is just the same structure as my old business, which is effectively a company or a structure that uses our money to own interests in investments, a big sector of which is businesses, which is private equity. And so we would own a minority or a small interest in these businesses with people we want to journey with and help them through capital and strategic support, to get to whatever it is they want to build. And so we've been doing that obviously with you guys, with other, businesses in all random sectors.
Is it dumbed down to like helping people? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Helping that specific type of person. Yeah. I realized like the person who wants to be an entrepreneur and build something, like I realized, not to make a judgment on others, but that's what my experience was. So actually helping others who've going through the same journey, adds so much to my life. So that's what we're doing now. We have a family office. That's what we do. Yeah.
No, it's just, it's not, it is funny. Like you're just hearing your story, like all the things you're saying, and you will know this, but like just me listening to you, I'm like, oh yeah, like that's how I feel. Like, like a bunch of your things. No, like you often pick up the phone to me, being like, hey Ben, don't know what the F's going on here, man. So can you tell me what's going on? And I guess your experience, sometimes sometimes you probably just bullshit me and get your pamphlet out from your back pocket and go, maybe not. Last question. The reason I like starting at the start and hearing about, how your upbringing was and I think not that we're at the end of your life, but the end of the interview. Question I've been asking everyone on Back Yourself is, what would you tell yourself as a young Ben Trinh? And it's interesting your comments around, I guess finishing up and exiting and sort of feeling like there was a bit of a transition there from 9-year-old to 40-year-old Ben. Knowing what you know now, if you could speak to Ben, maybe like mid-teens to school to uni sort of Ben, what would you tell him? What advice would you give him?
Yeah, it's a tough question. I think I would say I wouldn't change the fact that I went after things, but I would approach it with more humility. I would tell myself that just because you've got hustle doesn't mean you've got competency. Like ask, learn faster. Yeah. And second thing I'd say is you're not everyone's savior. It's almost this, I had this probably unhealthy savior complex. I've got to like solve everyone's problems. It's actually like, and I feel like that held me back a lot along the journey. So I would say I would probably say stay the course, but it could have been a lot easier and probably more successful, frankly, if I was more humble at the beginning, and not trying to like impose my expectations, but like, which is the savior complex thing, but rather what I found joy in the later stage of the business was taking the time to listen, learn what people actually wanted, and give them that instead, or make sure the company didn't get in the way of that or gave them that. And so I think if I'd learnt that sooner, the business would have probably grown bigger and faster. We would have had less collateral damage and hard, all that along the way.
And you can also understand that the context of that is you don't know that as you can't give that advice, right? No. You don't know all the stuff you know until you're not.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but it's just that I was saying to my wife the other day, to our kids, I'm like, everyone in their 20s, it's such a unique time. You just got to go after it. And when you grow up with bankruptcy, I think what it gives you is an appreciation for opportunity because you don't get any opportunities. Like you don't get money because you got no time. I didn't get any sport. I couldn't do any sport. I couldn't do any. But you then, when opportunity comes, you friggin' take it both. You go all in. You know what I mean? And I think that I've noticed now a lot of my friends who've grown up with a lot of opportunities almost take opportunities for granted, but then they don't go after any with fear for, it's almost that paralysis of having too many opportunities. But just go after one. You can't be half pregnant. Yeah.
Love it, mate. That is us. Back Yourself, BackChat's new business podcast. Ben, Trin, it's been a pleasure. We probably could have done this for 6 hours, but thanks for your time, mate. Been a pleasure working with you. Look forward to many good years ahead.
Thanks, Will. Appreciate it.